Hello, and welcome to this video presentation. My name is Paul Brett. I'm a Senior Software Support Analyst supporting the Itx product from IBM. Today's topic is Generate SSL certificates for Design Server and REST API. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Paul Brett IBM. During this demonstration, I will use script and config file changes to set up custom certificates for Design Server. I will then make additional config changes to make the REST API use the same certificates as the Design Server. This is for when they are on the same machine. In the second part of the demo, I will use script and config changes to set up custom certificates for a standalone REST API installation. Here we can see I have a connection to my Windows machine. In the IBM directory I have the ITX 10.1 product installed. I've been into the Design Server subdirectory and I've executed the unzip design server.bat followed by the install.bat. What this has done, it has installed some services such as Apache Tomcat running the REST API. It's also got the IBM Sterling Transformation Extender Web UI service running, as well as Redis, and before I started all this I manually installed MongoDB. Basically what this means is I've run through the absolute minimum to install the Design Server. If I bring up a browser pointing to localhost on HTTPS, you will note that the browser connects but gives a warning that the connection is not private, and if we click on the Not Secure button on the top left, we can see that the certificate being provided says localhost and some other connection data. Okay, let's move that window to one side for the moment and open up a new tab. And this tab we're going to connect to the same address, localhost, port 8443. Now this is the REST API port, and again as you can see we are getting a certificate error, and if we bring up the certificate properties for both of these connections now, you will note that the Design Server is using localhost and the REST API is using hcl.com. So they both have two different certificates. As that stands, it will be very difficult to get a browser to trust both of those, as they will both be reporting different information yet coming from the same place, the same DNS name. So let's see what we can do to fix that. We'll close these, and in the next step we will start editing some files. So the first file we're going to edit is in the ITX 10 directory, so let's go there now. We're going to go into the Design Server folder, then into Client, and finally into SSL certificates, where you will find two directories, Private Certificates and Self-Signed. In Self-Signed there are two files we need to edit. One of them is server-crt.cnf and the second one is server-crt.ext. Let's open those up with Notepad. Now you'll note that these files have been designed for Linux and therefore the entire content is all spread across one line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a backup of the file, and then in a command prompt I'm going to type that backup file, copy the information to my clipboard using my mouse, and then paste it directly into this notepad that's already opened. Okay, so the change I'm going to make is to change the common name from localhost to the actual name of the server, which is VM16XITX. This is the only change that we really need to make in this file. So we save that file, and then let's open the ext file. Again, everything all on one line because of the Unix line feeds. So I'm going to make a backup of that file. I'm then going to type that back up and get the content into my clipboard using my mouse, and then paste that into the notepad and save. Okay, we need to make one change in here. We need to add the host name into the alternate names. I want to shift all these down one and end up with still 3 DNS names, and I'm just going to ignore the 0.0.0.0 entry. So what we're going to do is change DNS1 to 2, DNS2 to 3, and pop DNS1 here to VM16XITX, and cut that out of there, paste it in there. Okay, so that's the changes I'm making. We've still got DNS123, but we've got the actual host name followed by localhost followed by the loopback IP address. So that's that file changed and saved. The next part of the process relies on a script that has been written for Linux. There is no equivalent Windows script provided with the product, but it's quite easy to get the changes made in this script to be a Windows batch file instead. So let's do that now. So I'm going to type the sh file, and I'm going to copy. Actually, I might not need to do that. Let's open that with Notepad. Yep, that's garbage. So let's get the content of that file into my clipboard, and then paste it in, and then save it as gen_self_signed.bat. Okay, a few small changes here to change it from a Unix shell script to a Windows batch file. Okay, cd space /d space %squiggle_dp0. Basically this means change to the drive and path where the batch file was executed from. This means that the rest of the batch file I don't have to worry about any kind of path issues. So I can take this information in this part of the line and replace it with blank, basically, just cut it out completely. And if I search for everywhere else that's used, I can delete it out of those lines. Okay, so the first 4 lines are ready. The copy command is slightly different on Windows, so we will take out the yes and the pipe and change CP to the full word copy. And then the // need to be changed to \\. The last one is not required, but we do need to put /y to confirm to overwrite the existing file. And we'll do that on the same on the next line and the next line. Okay, so that's 3 copy commands fixed, and the final 2 commands are perfectly acceptable. So there we go, that's all the changes required to make the shell script work on Windows. If I now save that file and execute it, a new set of scripts are going to get generated. I will need to enter a passphrase 4 times. It's going to be the same passphrase each time. You should use something nice and long that you're going to be able to remember, and it's got to be secret so that nobody else can get into the certificates. Okay, so the script is finished. It's generated some new files for me. If we sort files by date modified, you will note that the 3 key files I'm interested in are server crt.pem, server key.pem, and self-ca-root.pem. Now those 3 files were copied via those copy statements into private certificates, And the next time we start the design server, these certificates will be used instead of the ones that came with the product. Now you'll note that because of the changes I made into the CNF file and the ext file, these certificates now have the actual host name rather than localhost. We need to temporarily stop the product, so we will go to the design server directory and issue the stop command, and then issue the start command. Now that the application has started, we can issue the HTTPS command again. This time we're going to connect to the actual host name of the machine, and we will still see a failure, and this is because we haven't imported the certificate authority. Okay, as you can see, we're still getting a failure. It's still saying that the certificate is not valid. But the important thing is that if we click on this Not Secure button now and actually have a look at the certificate, you will note that we're now seeing the correct host name in the issued to. And if we go into the details and show only the extensions, the subject alternative name is also set to VM16X-ITX. Okay, so we're most of the way there. The last thing I need to do, because I've self-signed this certificate, is to import this certificate into my certificate store of my local machine. So let's do that now. I'm going to fire up the certificate manager console. I'm going to have a look at the trusted root certificate authorities. You will note there is currently no entry that begins with VM. If I right click, choose all tasks and import, next, I browse to the IBM directory, into the design server, into client, into SSL certificates, and into private certificates. Change the type to all files, and now I want to import the self-ca-root.pem file. I'm going to import it into the trusted root certificate authorities and finish. The import was successful, and you'll note now that I have a VM16X-ITX entry in my certificate store. If I now reissue the command to start the browser, you will note that we go straight into the design server with no warnings, and we have a padlock indicating that we have a secure connection. Great, that's the design server fixed, but we didn't do anything about the REST API, and if we try to connect to the REST API, you will note that we're still getting the connection is not private. Having a look at the certificate there, we are still seeing hcl.com. Okay, so how do we fix this? Let's close the browsers for the moment. We need to make another quick edit to one of the configuration files. In the main product installation directory, if we go into REST API, into Tomcat, into server, and into conf, we need to edit the server.xml file. I'm going to make a backup of that file now, and we're going to edit the original. We'll scroll down, and what we're doing is we're looking for this section here. This section is the currently active security section for the REST API, and it is using a predefined keystore that was created during the install.bat phase of the design server. Now what we're going to do is we're going to disable this section completely, and instead we're going to enable the section above, making a couple of changes. Okay, so let's disable this section first. I'm going to take the final 3 characters of this line and move it down to here, therefore making this entire block a comment. And I'm then going to take these 3 characters of this line and move it up to here. Activated this section. So this line is now just the comment, and this entire section is the active section. Okay, I need to make a slight change to where it's finding these files. When looking for 3 files, the location and the name is all wrong. So let's go back to the server directory, and you'll note that from the server directory we need to go back 1, 2, 3 levels to find design server, client, SSL certificates and private certificates. I'm going to copy that address to my clipboard, move that out of the way for the moment. I'm going to remove from the front of this name conf and paste in 1, 2, 3, going back 3 directories, and then from that point I'll be going into design server. Let's line that up there, design server, and I've got to change all backslashes to forward slashes. So client, SSL certificates, private certificates, and then after private certificates forward slash, and then the name of the file. Now the first file I want is the key file. The key file is called server-key. So let's copy that name to the clipboard and paste that in the XML. Server-key. Okay, let's copy the whole path that we've got here, and we shall put it in the next line, replacing again the conf forward slash. The name of the file for this second line is the server-crt.pem, and the final file is the third file that's in that directory, the self-ca-root.pem. So we'll copy the name of that back to server XML and replace localhost RSA chain with self-ca-root, and then also grab the path that we need and replace that conf forward slash. So there we have it. Back 3 directories into design server, into client, into SSL certificates, into private certificates, and read the server key, the server certificate, and the CA root chain. So this section is active. We've changed the 3 lines to actually find the files that we need. Now we need to save this file and close, and then we need to stop and restart the product. So back to my command prompt, issue the stop again, and then issue the start. So if we now issue the command to fire up the design server, you will note that the certificate is valid and it's gone straight in. If we issue the command to connect to the REST API, we're straight in, and you'll notice that there is still a padlock there. If you have a look at the certificate being used here, it's the server name that we put in, and if we go into details and look in the extensions, the subject alternative name is also the name that we put in, as well as the other 2 alternatives. One little tip here: if you click on the manager app and you get this error about access denied, I'll show you how to fix that now. If we go back to the REST API directory and into Tomcat and into server, and if we go into web apps, then into manager, and then into meta-inf, you will find a file called context.xml. Quick edit on this file, and temporarily we can take out the security that's stopping remote administration of the manager by anything other than localhost. By removing these items, you will allow that manager button to work. So if I save that file now and then head back into the REST API, which we go straight in, if I click on the manage app, then we're allowed to log in. We use admin and admin. I won't bother saving the password. And you will see that the REST API is deployed on /Itx Rest. If I click on that, it'll tell me the version of the API, and we can also additionally, let's close that button for the moment. There's a couple of other URLs that I want to show you. We have the REST API page, the Swagger page, as you can see, still got the padlock on there, and we have the endpoints page, Itx Rest v2 docs, and this is all the endpoints that have been deployed. Again, still got the padlock there. So there we go, a quick summary of how to change the product so that the design server and the REST API, if installed on the same machine, use the exact same certificates, and how to import that certificate file into your local root certificate authority so that you can get secure connection properly. Now, if I was to want to connect to this machine from another machine, a remote machine, I would get the same certificate problem. If I go into the same hostname, VM16xITX, on this remote machine, connection is exactly back to where we were before. Error certificate authority invalid. The certificate file that we found in the ITX 10.1 directory under design server, client, SSL, private certificates. This self ca root.pem file, if you import that into the root certificate authority of any Windows machine, you will be able to connect to the design server or the Itx Rest API without getting any kind of restrictions, and you'll get the padlock. In the next section, I'll be showing you how to do the same thing for a standalone installation of the REST API. Back on the same machine now, and the next step is to show you how to do the same on the Itx Rest API Standalone. So the first thing I need to do is to stop the product, and after issuing the stop, I then issue the clean command, which will basically return the configuration back to the way it was just after I installed the product. So all of the services, the Apache Tomcat, the ITX UI, and the Redis have all been removed. So if we go back to our Explorer window, you will note that in the REST API subdirectory within Tomcat, the server directory has completely disappeared. Okay, so installing the REST API is done from this directory, and we manually call dtxtomcatservice.bat. But before we do that, I'm just going to just remind you that this is the script that's called by the install.bat that we run from design server. So we're just going to be calling that separately, doing a REST API standalone runtime. So the design server won't be installed, only the REST API. Before we actually run it, we're going to make some changes. I'm going to search for the string hcl.com, which, if you remember, was the common name given in the certificate when we first installed the product. So around about 40% of the way through the file, you'll find this big block of rem statements, after which is some lines that use the key tool utility to generate a lot of information for the certificate that is generated on the fly. The changes that we made to the server.xml stopped us from actually using the certificate and instead allowed us to use the same one for design server. Now obviously if you're doing a standalone installation, you won't be able to do that, so you've got to use the one that's generated by this process. And what we're going to do is replace hcl.com with the hostname of the machine. So that's VM16xITX. There's one other change we also have to make on this line, and that change is to add some extended attributes to this certificate request. So I'm going to put in a -ext, and then in quotes we're going to write SAN, which is subject alternative name, and we're going to put an equals DNS:VM16xITX and close the quotes. So that's an extended attribute that we're going to be making to our request. We've made the common name VM16xITX and the alternative name is also VM16xITX. Okay, so let's hit the save button on that changed file, and then let's drop to a command prompt and run that batch file now. We need to run it with the install keyword. Okay, the REST API has installed and it's started, so in theory if we open one of these links we will get a connection, but we're still getting cert authority invalid, and this is because in our certificate root authorities we've still got the old certificate that we generated with a design server installation, and this standalone installation has regenerated a new certificate. So Let's come out of there for a moment and remove the old certificate. Go into the certificate manager, and in the certificates let's find the old VM16 entry and delete it. With the old certificate gone, we can import the new certificate. If we try to connect to the server again and click on Not Secure, click on the certificate, click on Details, and then click on Copy to File. This is a way of extracting the certificate to the local machine ready for importing into the root certificate authority. So I'm going to call this VM16 xitx.cer, and I'm going to put it into the desktop. Okay, so I've exported from the browser the certificate that the REST API is giving us. Let's close the browser for a moment. Here's the certificate that we imported. So let's go back into our certificate management program, and as we did before with the design server, we will import from that file that we've got into the Trusted Root Certification Authority. Now that the import is done, we have again got our VM16 entry in our certificates of Trusted Root Certification Authorities. We close the manager down and we fire up the REST API again. I need to do it with the host name instead of the shortcut that I've got there that's pointing to localhost. And now it goes straight in and we've got the padlock. So there we go. That's how you configure the standalone REST API installation to use the host name of your choice. The only one edit that you really need to do is edit the dtxtomcatservice.bat file, search for the hcl.com entry and replace it with the host name that you've actually got, and then put in the extended attributes as well. Otherwise, modern browsers like Chrome will still give you an alert. Back in the REST API, if we click the Manager app, we're going to get the access denied issue again because we blew away the context.xml file. So just to prove that that still works, I will go into the server subdirectory, Web Apps, Manager, metainf, and edit that file one more time. Make the same edit, turn this line into a comment, and save, and close. And now when I fire up the REST API, we can click on Manager App, we can sign in, and from there we can click on the REST API link and we can see that the REST API version is up and running. And of course, if we edit our shortcuts here, let's bring up the properties of that and change our shortcuts to point to the actual host name instead of localhost, VM16xitx. I'll only do this bottom one. We can just double click on it, endpoints link there, and we're straight in. Padlock and everything. That's the end of the demo. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video presentation today. If you found the content interesting and informative, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel as I release content such as this on a regular basis. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at PaulBrettIBM. Thank you.